You just let me know. Well, hi everyone. My name is Roy Ortiz. I am the co-founder of Touristed Chile and the director of the Transformational Travel Research Committee. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about what are the essential components of our transformational experience, and how can we evaluate the impact that transformational experience has on the traveler, on the industry, and on the community. This is an event or a conversation that is in the Festival of the New Dawn in Travel. And I have the opportunity to be with some fantastic guests that you will get to know soon, because I prefer that each one of them presents themselves. And initially, I'm gonna explain a little bit about my company, which is called Touristed Chile. We are an operator in Chile region. And we focus on, as our company is Touristed, is the combination of tourism and education. So we have a strong focus on educating the visitor or the traveler through tourism. That is our main purpose or focus. And I also work as the director of the Transformational Travel Research Committee. And the focus of the committee is to generate evidence-based information on transformational travel to be able to make informed decisions. The idea is to create valuable information to all of our allies. So with this said, I just want to go into the conversation. And to start with, I think we could begin with the definition of the term transformational travel, which in the website of the Transformational Travel Council, it is defined as: transformational travel is intentionally traveling to stretch, learn, and grow into new ways of being and engaging with the world. This is a definition that has arisen from a very big debate between all of us. And I have Tanner Colton, which is the Director of Product Innovation and Education at the TTC, and co-founder of Travel Life Adventures, who I would like first to introduce himself and to tell us a little bit about what does he think about this definition and maybe how it came about.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Roy. First, really appreciate you facilitating this conversation. I'm really excited to hear what we come up with, what we talk about, and what the insights are about this topic. It's really important. And here at the TTC, I think, just like you mentioned, there's always discussion about the definition, and I think we always go back and forth, and we're trying always to get more input about the definition. But the definition itself, I think, it tries to do a couple things. It tries to touch on that transformation really is a process and not a product, right? That we can't really necessarily package or sell or monetize or commoditize transformation, because it is so personal, and it's so dependent on factors that are sort of out of our hands as tourism professionals a little bit. So the definition it tries to do that. There's also a couple different ways of looking at transformation, right? I think at the TTC we've decided, or I guess we operate on the idea that transformation is something that is intentionally undertaken. That's why in the definition it says intentionally traveling to stretch, learn, and grow. I think that there's also a train of thought or a line of thinking that says transformations can happen anytime and anywhere without, an intentional seeking of that transformation. And I think we've all kind of experienced those kind of things, right, in our life. So I think that the definition itself is always in flux, but I think the key components of the definition are that it is a process, that it does require some action or intentionality or some engagement by the traveler, as you said, connecting to a place, and about communities and people and experiences and that kind of thing. So yeah, definition always in flux, but I think we've settled on it as a tool for those things.
Well, thank you very much, Tanner. I don't know if any of the other participants wants to jump into this question and give their thought about, you know, what transformational travel is, and maybe if there is something missing in this definition, or we want to change it, alter it, modify, improve.
I would say that it's a great definition, and I would like to emphasize the component of intentionality. I think that intentionality is a key element for the transformational process. And it's a turning point from how it has been treated, transformational tourism in many respects, because I think that there is some confusion between experiential tourism and transformational tourism. And for me, the difference between the two kinds of tourism is that in transformational tourism, you must have an initial intent to transform yourself. I mean, experiences happen, and maybe you don't know what you're looking for exactly in that experience, but transformations also happen. I agree totally with Tanner that any tourism experience or any experience in your life can transform you. So you don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. But if we are talking about something like transformational tourism, and we offer a transformational tourism experience, I think that there has to be like an intent from the tourist to take on this trip with an intention. I mean, the external trip is like the excuse for an internal trip. You know, the reason of your travel is the internal transformation. So I think that intentionality is absolutely essential for a good definition of transformational tourism.
And for me, just to end up, I think also another key is the evolution. It has to be evolving, so it's not static. So I think that definition of transformational, it will never end, because there will be always an evolution. There will be always, it's evolving, and we are living that. And I think the intention and the evolution part of it, I think there are two really key aspects. And both of them are in the actual definition, which I think it's good, has the power and the potential of it.
Well, thank you very much, Ana and Marco. I totally agree, no, and this is something that we've been talking in the TTC, you know, and actually the definition has already been evolving, you know? And I think that that's also why we want to communicate this in this session, and we communicate it all the time, because we believe that there is so many things that, you know, form part or are components of a transformational experience that we need the input from many different places. And I think this is very good for the next questions that I have written down, which is what are the essential components for a transformational experience? And Ana, I don't know if you could start this little discussion. Well, Ana Alaman is the founder of Open Eyes Project and co-founder of the Regan Lab for Travel.
Okay, so yes, I'm Ana Alaman. I founded Open Eyes project in 2011. It's a tour operator in responsible tourism in India. So we integrate communities in our value chain, in our experiences. So we are handmade experiences designers, we can say, since those 10 years. I'm also an educator in Barcelona, and the last couple of years I'm moving also in with the Regan Lab for Travel. We want to help to the transition of this new paradigm of regeneration, you know, to the tourism industry. So as we say, I'm also evolving. So I started 12 years ago with sustainability. Personally and professionally, I'm evolving and continue evolving in that way. So I'm also part of the research committee of TTC. So I'm very happy to be sharing all with you. Yeah.
Perfect. So what do you think, Anna, are the essential components for a transformational experience? What do you think, are certain things or key things that you look for or you try to include when you're kind of trying to design this medium or this environment for transformation to occur?
So first of all, I think that we have seen that there is an interconnection. We are like a net. So it needs to be an intention, as we have said, from all the components, yeah? And that itself is a work. That itself is a designing process, and it's a work. So it needs to be a part of the traveler needs to have a very open-minded mindset, and also curiosity. For me, has been two aspects from the traveler point of view, that when they have that curiosity, they are open to receive, then the transformation can happen, easier. At the same time, it needs to be I think this is important, when it needs to be an alignment of what the traveler is looking for, and an alignment with the organization in the destination, which is aligned with the values and what the planet needs. So it has to be an alignment of all these three aspects: the traveler, the organization, and also the organization working with something to really get that potential. Then the traveler is also feeling, I think we can speed up the transformation. I think that's, we can accelerate a little bit more the transformation. The experience design, I think it's a key for like us tour operators in destination, how we can put up all that process in a design, thinking from 1 hour tour to a 15 days tour, how we can really slow down the process from the traveler. The traveler needs also to have that point of reflection, also very important to really, digest all these reflections. We need a lot of encounters with the community, but not only encounters. I mean, encounters, just to have encounters is not enough. We really need to have and to inspire to have open conversations with the local communities. And those open conversations need to be part of the design process. Sometimes can happen spontaneously, but as a tour operator, we really think that it has to be inspired as well in the conversations from the guide, for example, yeah? And I could give some examples as well, but I think that force them to have the reflection. It's one of the key that we help the travelers and we help to change the mindset. Changing mindset for me is the key now. How we can really help, how we can really, all the companies, we can have that intention to really change the mindset. That for me is the power that we should work, all the agents.
Yeah, very interesting. I totally agree with you, Anna. This idea of reflection, I think is key, and this idea of the community, the being present, the having these thoughtful conversations and valuing at the end of the day, the local, customs, local heritage. Totally agree. Let me just point another thing which I've heard, and Marco, I'm gonna launch this question to you. Within this idea of essential components for transformational experience, I've seen in literature that there is a debate on this idea of the tourist or the traveler has to be taken out of its comfort zone, and another idea of, you have to keep a safe environment. So we are all trying to balance these two components. I don't know what you think about this.
Well, that's the challenge, I totally agree that taking the traveler out of his or her comfort zone is essential for transformation. In my opinion, transformation takes place where one can engage with the unknown, with unfamiliar places, with unfamiliar people, and with unfamiliar activities. But obviously, you want to create a safe environment so the perceived risk by the traveler is not too much, So that's the challenge of the operator, to give this unfamiliarity factor, and at the same time to keep a sort of safe environment, But I think both of them can be combined perfectly. And it's as well later we will discuss about what kind of information you need from the traveler. And I think asking to the traveler about these kind of factors is essential. You need this information in advance, how far you want to go, you know, in this element of risk. How much risk do you want to take? Some people would want to take more risk. Some people will want to take less risk, you know. For example, in terms of a trip that is related to extreme sports, you know. So you have to inform the traveler or the potential traveler of the element of risk that is involved with this, with the practicing of those sports. So if you wanna do a kind of ayahuasca like experience, the person needs to know and needs to have information in advance about that, about what it entails to take an ayahuasca trip, you know. So information is essential for that.
Yeah, right. If I can jump, like just add a quick add, I don't want to take too much time, but I think it's an important place to talk too about, you were talking about elements of a transformational experience. I think at the TTC, we've sort of developed this idea of that transformations come from connections, right? And connections of all different kinds. We've kind of broken them into 3 types of connections: connecting to the self. So that's what Anna was talking about with those reflections and time to think about what I'm doing and how I'm thinking and how I'm being and feeling, right? Then connections to others. So that's your connecting with communities and people. And we, you know, we could go and talk a whole hour about what the components or what the parameters for healthy connections with others is. But I think the main thing there is what we're talking about, which is a balance between something that takes you out of your normal, but makes you feel, you know, not feel feelings and emotions such as guilt or shame or those kind of things. There's lots of research about those kind of emotions being barriers to positive change, which is what we're trying to get at, right? And then 3rd types of connections, we call it connecting to the infinite, but it's really connecting to something bigger than yourself. So an idea that I'm connecting to, you know, spirituality of some kind, or connecting with nature, or something that makes me feel small or outside myself, right? So if we can increase those types of connections, I think we can really get at that positive change, which is what we're trying to get: positive change for people, planet, and self, right? So just wanted to throw that in.
No, thank you very much, Tanner. Please jump in whenever you feel like it, as everyone. No? The idea is to have a discussion, and I think you've digested it really well, no, with this idea, and it's something that you probably see all the time in the designer course that the TTC is launching. But I wanna jump to the next question, because Marco already mentioned a little bit about this idea of what information do we require from the traveler to try to generate the conditions, you know, for transformation. No? And this links into what we've been talking, what Marco was saying about what are the different interests that the visitor, you know, it's looking for, and also how can we kind of prepare him for the journey that he's going to embark. So I want to throw this question to you, Marco, and maybe you can give us some ideas or kind of what kind of information should we gather from the traveler in order for the experience, the transformation experience that we want to design to fit the traveler. Because as we've just mentioned, it is totally personal and not one experience can fit all. So we have to try and gather this information to kind of try and, you know, tailor-made each experience to the traveler.
Yeah, that's right. I think that this kind of tourism has to be a small kind of tourism. I mean, you cannot mass tourist this kind of experiences. So you need to know as much as possible from the traveler in advance to be able to personalize and to custom made the experience for the traveler. And I think one of the elements you need to know about is the personal situation of the potential tourist or of the tourist who wants to go on this kind of experience. I think that your personal situation is key, is what is moving the person to embark in this kind of journeys, you know, is the catalyst. So what kind of situation are you living right now? How is your life? What moves you to take this trip? Maybe the person probably is going through a process of change. Maybe that person just divorced or have wants to change his or her life for some reason. So knowing about this situation, I think, is key, as well as knowing about the intentions of the traveler. What do you want to change in your life? What do you want to change in yourself? And as we said before, how far you want to go, because I think that difficulty is one of the elements that catalyze the transformational experience. There has to be in this trip an element of hardship. You know, the more you are taken out of your comfort zone, and the harder it is for you, probably the transformational potential increases. So I always say that if you want to go to heaven, you have to die first. So there has to be a death of the old self to have a new self born there. And if you want to go for big T transformation, you know, hardship has to be there. So there has to be some kind of questionnaire and some kind of in-depth interview with the traveler to know about that. And I think that you need to know about the values of the traveler and how is he living with his values at the moment, and how he would like to be more true to his values or to her values in the future is key as well. Of what do you want to transform in yourself? So, you know, this would be some elements that the operator should know in advance.
No, that's very interesting, Marco, and this idea of the inner journey and outer journey that we have to be, you know, we have to be aware of, you know, when we want to design these experiences, you know, and those questions I think are very interesting. I don't know. Yeah, perfect.
Yes, and I think that also about the initial questionnaire is important, but the last questionnaire is also important after the trip, you know, and really see it has been challenging enough, or really how do you feel, which reflections, which breakthroughs you have had from the trip. Yeah, and that is when we as a tour operators, if we are on the ground, we can really keep improving and supporting and facilitating this transformation faster and with more quality. So I think the initial and the last one questionnaire are very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Quickly too, I think we both touch on a couple of really important things here, which is Marco was talking about information we need to gather. You know, we talk a lot at the TTC about what is the traveler's why, you know, what's their purpose. And it can be small things or big things, but I think just if I want to gain some information or I want to design an experience that's powerful and transformational, I need to try to figure that out or discover that in some way, right? The other thing you mentioned was challenge. I love thinking about discovering someone's boundaries, or like, you know, someone might say, I want to do this, or I'm willing to go this far. And then I can use that in two ways, right? I can go, well, maybe we'll go a little bit further than that, because I think, you know, there's power and value in that. And also maybe there is some things to avoid there if I'm from a design perspective. But like if someone says, I don't typically like hiking, I'll go, well, we're going to go on a hike then, because it'll be a challenge for you, kind of, right, to use it in that way. But and then the third thing I think that's important, that for what kind of information you want ahead of time, is about characteristics and persona of the traveler as well. Who is this person now, currently, and then also who did they want to be, or how do they want to be on their experience that might be different from who they normally are. And I think that there's power in helping a traveler embody some characteristics that maybe they don't normally do, or they want to become something different than what they are. We have a tool at the TTC called HEART, stands for Humble, Engaged, Awake, Resilient, and Thankful. This is an attempt to describe a persona of someone who's ripe for transformational experiences, right? So if I can embody all of those characteristics, then my chances of experiencing that are higher. So a couple more things there, but yeah, I think we're on the right track for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Tanner. I just want to throw this other concept that we didn't touch upon, I think, and I think it's very important, which is this idea of having a kind of a guide or someone to kind of help you along the way. I don't know if anybody wants to comment a little bit about this idea.
I could give the training we have been doing with women in India to be intercultural guides, and we have always really pointed out intercultural guides are different than conventional guides, because we really put the conversation about to open up those reflections with the travelers from the first day in the training. And it was interesting because our women guides, they came the last time, that was in January 2000, December 2019, we were until March 2020, and then we had to stop. That was our second intercultural guide for women in India. And they were surprised because they thought we were expecting more a conventional guide about the monuments. And what it's about is to really, the women guides to be aligned with the place where they are really guiding at the destination. Well, it was a lot of components for the background of the woman in India are different than in Europe, of course. So then we had to work as well deeper in that sense. But I'm going to give you an example to open up conversations with the travelers. Our guide Amrita, I remember that she's Muslim, and 95% of guides in India are men. So we always give that data, and we work with women drivers. So 99.9 are men. So we work with that 0.01% of drivers, and we work with that 4% of guides to really, and our women guide put that conversation in during the experience. For example, she's Muslim, she's the first woman who is guiding and is a driver, and we were in a mosque, and she's asking that question to the travelers: how many women you have had during your travelers? And they say, oh, maybe one, never, yes, where? In Europe, and usually, and how many in Asia? Oh, never. So that point of reflection in the place where they are, the guide is a facilitator. The guide is a facilitator to really make that transformation. And that has to be in the design planner. That has to be in the design, in the training. Otherwise, we need to create that space of reflection, and the guide needs to be the facilitator. So that is one example.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna. I think, yeah, you're totally right. No, the idea of the guide, the mentor, however we want to call it, we think is key, because this process of reflection that we've been talking about, has to be facilitated, or has to be, there has to be that time when we design experiences for that to occur. No? And sometimes us as operators, we're always trying to pack stuff. And sometimes the best thing is to actually take off things, and leave that space for reflection. No, so yeah, yes, thank you very much.
I would like to add something, because I'm so glad that you brought that topic out, Roy, because the guide is so essential in transformational tourism, and I think it's one of the elements that set apart transformational tourism from other kind of tourism. The importance of the guide and the role that the guide plays. If the traditional travel guide was somebody that was guiding you physically throughout the place to show you the spots and to tell you about the spots, so his function was in the physical area and in the intellectual area, transmitting knowledge about the place and about the customs and about the culture and about these kind of topics. I think in transformational tourism, those elements have to be complemented with an spiritual guidance as well. The guide has to guide you spiritually as well in your inner journey. So the kind of skills that the travel guide needs to have are much more wider than the traditional, or much wider than the traditional travel guide. The guide is a midwife in your transformation, for your transformation. And I remember now what Anna said before, that I think was essential into the elements of the transformational and the info that you need from the traveler in advance. And she said that after the trip, information is essential. And that links with this function of the guide that doesn't finish after the trip. He is to be a sort of guru or a sort of guide in this spiritual transformation. He has to be there, or she has to be there after the trip, and you have to engage in a relationship, and you have to gather information about how you are like incorporating those elements that you live in the trip in your normal life. So I think that one of the bigger changes that takes place in terms of the designing of a tourist transformational tourist package is to introduce this element of a long-lasting relationship. It's not only about the trip and that the relationship ends, is that you need to be in touch with the tourists afterwards.
Yeah, thank you, Marco, for your for adding that. I think we all agree totally with that, and we'll come to that point a little bit further on, this idea of time frame, to put it in a way. But before we get there, I want to go into the next question, and this question focuses on a bit on that initial concept that I was talking about what would be the ideal outcome of a transformational experience, and who should we target. And this goes back to this initial objective of this session of the 3 lines. What would be the ideal outcome for the traveler, for the industry, and for the local community, and how do we balance all of this? And I want to give this question initially to Tanner.
Yeah, wow. Again, a question that could garner its own 24-hour festival, I think. But I think that the question there is probably 2 parts, which is outcomes. What are the outcomes, and then also how do we get to them, or how do we know whether the outcome has happened or not, right? From a research perspective, I think we want to start with the idea, at least from my perspective, that the outcome should be positive change, right? Because that it fits in all of those things you talked about for travelers, destinations, communities, planet, all of those things, right? That if transformational travel is about deepening connections, and it's about changing mindsets, and it's about new ways of being and new ways of seeing, that all of that is great, but if it doesn't lead to some sort of positive change or positive outcome for all involved, then it's not as powerful or not as transformational as it could be, right? So obviously we've talked a lot about traveler changes or positive changes for travelers, right? It changes the way I think, or maybe the way that I am in the world, or how I see myself in relation to others, or things like that. And that's the power of that for travelers, which does have a ripple effect for those other things too. But there also needs to be a focus on what are the positive changes for a community, local people that live in a place that interact with tourism. How do we set up tourism infrastructures and design processes and things to make local people the protagonist or the main drivers of tourism in their locations, right? To ensure that it's healthy and positive and benefiting local people and all that stuff. And then from a planetary or a climate perspective, we touched on it a little bit earlier about regeneration, this idea that tourism has real power to lead in that area, right? Which is to go from a degenerative, extractive, exploitative industry to a main player in the regeneration of planet and land and place. And there's, you know, like I said, there's a million things to discuss about that. But I think the outcomes there are those. And I think from a research perspective, again, I think we want to get to, which is how do we determine whether those outcomes are happening or not? And that's the connecting the dots of all we've talked about, which is the before, during, and after. And having a clear idea of what we want to happen, I think, is important. And that would be my perspective about what the outcomes would be, ideally, anyway.
Well, thank you, Tanner. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in, comment about this idea of what would be the ideal outcome and the focus in the three areas.
Well, I think just very short, what I said also before is about changing mindset from the traveler, from the industry, and even from communities in the destination. So changing mindsets, it's, I think it's really seeing the world with different lens that we are seeing it right now. I think that could be, for me, an ideal outcome. How we can really make it tangible, how we can know how has been this mindset changed. This is what we have to work. I mean, for me, it's what I'm passionate to see how we can really, as an agent in destination and a facilitator, how we can really know how this mindset change has been, generated from the community point of view, from the industry point of view, and from the traveler point of view.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna. And I think this links up very good to our next question. Because Tanner just mentioned the idea of, connecting the dots. How do we measure, in a way, these outcomes? And you just comment this idea of changing mindsets, and how do we evaluate that? So the next question is, how do we measure and evaluate transformational experiences? And this idea of the big T and little t that we've been debating, in the TTC and everywhere. This idea of that transformational can be from a small change in perspective or a paradigm shift to a complete change in behavior, to an even life-changing moment. So how can we measure this? And well, I'm going to leave this question open for now, and then maybe we can deep in. And I want to ask this question to you, Marco.
Well, first of all, when we are talking about big T and small t, we have to take into account that we are talking about two totally different kind of transformations. And we are talking about is the difference between horizontal development or vertical development. When we are talking about horizontal development, it's about acquiring new behaviors, new knowledge, new skills, new competencies. It's like you have a glass and you pour water into it. So the glass gradually fills up with this new content. But when you are talking about vertical development, this vertical development takes place especially when this glass that you have is already full or is not adequate to hold what we want to pour in. So you need a new glass. You have to design a new glass. This is vertical development. It's a change of mentality. It's a change of it's a change of self. So your ability increases and you think in more complex, in more systemic ways, more interdependent ways. So there is a new self. There is a before and after, and so a small T transformational tourism will be the one that relates to horizontal development, and big T transformational tourism will be the one that deals with vertical development. I think that transformational tourism should aim towards vertical development, but as we don't know if this. We don't know the outcome of a transformational tourism experience. So we have to aim for the moon and maybe we'll reach, I don't know, or aim for the stars and maybe we'll reach the moon and we'll have a small T transformation in the person as well, you know. But we have to aim for the big T transformation. So I think the kind of information or the kind of what you need, like questionnaires or things like that, have to be questionnaires that tell you about what level of development the person is. So things related to there are questionnaires about in psychology, in developmental psychology, that tell you about what is the state of consciousness of the traveler. And they're very good, you know, spiral dynamics and so on and so forth. I think that we have to be very aware about all the developments in developmental psychology and in the instruments to measure the level of consciousness of a person.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco. I loved the explanation of the glass of water. I think it's very good. I'm gonna take it of you, because I think it's a very visual and very, you know, easy thing to see, and I totally agree. You know,
you can take it free of charge.
Thank you. I'll give you credit for sure. So yeah, I think that's very interesting, and I just want to throw in a little concept, and maybe Anna, you can discuss a little bit about this with relation to how we measure, you know, this big T and little t, and it's this idea that we talked before about time frame, you know, this idea of when do we have to gather this information, you know? Not only what do we have to identify, but also when do we have to identify.
Right. So I think it's, for me, it's also a learning process of this, because we are talking about human development. We are talking, and it is not easy to really design. And again, I think that it's important to say that we cannot standardize the same, you know, experience and the same process. It cannot be the same for a person, and also the destination, you know, it's different. So we cannot standardize process in Peru. It's going to be the same in India. It's going to be the same in Barcelona. That I think that we need to change that. And we have to really be more designing in the place where we are working. And for us, for example, the frame is different when we are in the community, in a rural area, and we make those questions. So we have more time and space to slow down and to really make those reflections between the guide and the communities and the travelers. But for example, in Delhi, we don't have that environment. With 25 million people, which is overwhelming, we have to use that overwhelming to really reflect about the population of the place, about, you know, the situation of the woman in the place, and to reflect about inequalities, where maybe sometimes people, they don't reflect, or even women from other countries, they don't reflect about that. So we have to design, we have to understand the place, and every place is unique, and we really need to design accordingly. So a frame for me, it's different because it's different the place and where we are designing. So it's just what I can say.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anna. And I think you've touched on something very important, and I also want to throw this question maybe to you, Tanner. And it's this idea of that questionnaire that we want to develop, that probably is going to have, you know, it's going to be before the traveler, or, you know, before the experience. It's going to be during, and it's going to be after, and we don't know what after, because, you know, sometimes that transformation, we can see it like happening in the moment, but sometimes it's like 3 years after, and the client calls us and tells us, you know what, I've just realized, you know, that this happened, you know. And just to leave you with that, and the question is this idea of, because we were talking about tourists or travelers, we were talking about industry, and we were talking about local community. So do these questions have to be different for each stakeholder? What do you think?
These are all really good questions. I think first that I like to think of gathering information as, like, I think you had mentioned it earlier, Roy, about it being a continuous process, right? That we have to somehow So if I think about it from, if I'm an operator or a designer, right, and I have clients that come and they go on trips, I have to try to create some sort of mechanism that can continually feed me information about what's going on with the traveler first, and then what's happening in the places that we're traveling. So it's trying to open up pathways where information can come to me regularly and continually. And there's, you know, there's ways to do that, whether it's some sort of community that you create with travelers who've gone on trips, or you provide opportunities to continue to engage with your company or with communities or people or places that they meet. But that idea of trying to create a continuous information feedback loop, I think, is an important idea. And I think that you're onto something important here too, Roy, which is the questions that we ask and the things that we seek to find and understand is probably a little bit different based on who we're asking the question to, right? That what I want to know about whether a community or a local person or a place is transforming or having a positive outcome is different than whether the traveler is changing and having a positive outcome. So it is a little bit of a different way of thinking, right? I might care more about different things with a community. I want to know, you know, like Anna's talking about, are the status of women changing in the community, and what's their relationship to tourism, and is there an increase in empowerment and freedom of choice, and is there increased economic benefits, and how are those spread out? And all of those kinds of questions are important for the outcomes for destinations, where with travelers, I might be more concerned about changing mindsets and character and choices, and how do I inform more positive choices for my travelers, and how does it change their life and have a ripple effect in the people around them, and all this kind of thing. So I do think that there's some nuance and some customization that has to happen for each one of those different stakeholders, I would call them. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. I think it answered the question. I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and comment. Is it okay?
I mean, I think that Tanner has nailed it, but I think it's an evolution, and every person will, how long after there is not a process of, after a year, you will have a proper transformation. After a week, you will have a proper transformation. So it depends how the person, as Marco says, the consciousness that the person enjoyed the trip from the beginning, then maybe, and how is designed those experiences in the moment, in the place, and you know, and the community is connected with the potential of the place, so we can make the potential of the experience. Then the traveler, maybe it has an aha moment in the place, or maybe the aha moment is after 2 years. We design a lot of solo women travelers in India, in a country where, you know, we have to get out of, there is a lot of security, safety aspects, etc., etc. So for us has come sometimes in the moment, and for us has come sometimes even the traveler wants more, because we need to see that the type of traveler who wants a transformation has to be open for a transformation, and they know the positive aspect that it has to be being transformed. Yeah, so that those travelers who they know that transformation is positive for their lives and for the others, so they look for more, and it's part of their lifestyle. So maybe it continue, and after 2 years they continue for more. So how long after? I don't think there is one answer for this.
I would like to say something, especially about what I think are the conditions that can trigger this big T transformation, this vertical development. I think that 3 elements have to be present, and we have to incorporate that in the design of our programs. The first thing, I call it heat experiences. We have to submit the traveler to complex situations that kind of disrupt the person, disorient the individual usual way of thinking, you know. So we have to create this is the what of your transformational travel package, you know. And then the second element we already talked about is the interaction with other people that have that will provide colliding perspectives, that will change your mindset, your ideas, that challenge your existing mindset. And the third element, I think, is we have to go to aspire to creating the tourists an elevated sense making, you know. So we want to have a big transformation in the tourists, and this should be achieved through a process of coaching, a long-term process, because as Roy said, that can happen 3 years later. So for the person to integrate these experiences and make sense of these perspectives. So we need to be engaged in a long-term relationship with the person to help him integrate these experiences throughout time into his everyday life. So I think these 3 elements are key. Obviously, we cannot standardize, but there are some elements that have to be present in every transformational tourism experience, I think.
Yeah, Roy, Marco made me think of one thing too I wanted to throw in. We were talking about guides earlier, and we're talking about, you know, guiding an inner versus an outer experience and how those are different. I think that we can also expand our understanding of what a guide is too. That guides don't necessarily have to be people that guide you on this thing, right? Guides can be things like books, or, you know, we have the Transformational Travel Journal, or it can be nature itself. It can be like kind of intangible things or non-human things too, that guides are only as good as, you know, my willingness to accept the guidance, right? And so I think that that's an important element too. I love, Marco, I love your 3 elements there that you outlined. I think those are spot on. I just wanted to tell you that I feel like you nailed those.
Yes,
Yeah, well,
I totally, yes, with Tanner. And I think that the evolution of tourism moves beyond only one person as a guide, the conventional. It can be a book, a journal, it can be music, it can be an app. I mean, things will evolve, and we need to also do that. I think the intention of an element who accelerate that, and who rather have the intention of transformation. The element can be a human being, it can be music, it can be nature, it can be, but it has to be an intention of that element there. Yeah, that's it.
well, thank you very much. I think it's been a very engaging conversation. I really like all your comments, your thoughts, and I just wanted to mention, continuing with this idea of the continuous feedback, is that the Transformational Travel Research Committee, it's generating like a database or a working program with anyone that is actually watching this or that forms part of the TTC, in order to be able to work with operators and industry professionals to gather this information in a continuous format. Our objective, obviously, is to generate valuable information, you know, to the community, and we want to do that by, you know, getting the feedback from all of the people from the community and trying to align our lines of investigation or our field of investigation towards what is interesting for the industry. So I want to just, you know, leave that there. And if anybody wants to get in contact with us, you can go do it through the TTC and form part of this ongoing, you know, feedback process or continuous, you know, gathering of information that will help all of us, you know, to be able to make decisions with some kind of evidence-based information.
Yeah, Roy, if I can throw in a plug for the TTC a little bit here, do my duties. The cool part about the TTC and what we're trying to do here is create in our ally community places where we can do this kind of stuff, right? And not only where we can gain that insight and information from folks like Anna and other people that are out in the world doing the things and engaging with the travelers and doing all that stuff, but also being part of the TTC community can benefit you as an operator or whatever it is that you're doing, because you'll have access to the results of that information at some point, right? That gathering all this stuff and trying to coalesce it into something usable for the industry, just like you said, Roy, that the important part here is that the data that we gather and the research we do and the information that we get is useful in amplifying transformations and creating even more positive impact outside of what we can do as individuals, right? So just a plug for the TTC there. If you're not part of the TTC ally community, or you're new or you're listening to this, definitely please reach out and we can get you plugged in and involved.
Well, thank you very much, Tanner. This is it for the session. The only thing left is if any of you wants to make a last comment or want to point out something before we finish this conversation. This is the time. I guess we've said everything. Well, thank you, everyone.
I want to hear more from both of you. Yeah, Anna.
No, I just want to. Okay, Anna, go ahead.
No, just to wrap up, I think that I think definitely the role model of a tour operator is completely transformed what we are talking right now, the type of conversations. And that's a reflection also I had, like, oh my God, you know, how we had changed from the booking on a hotel, wherever, and some logistics to really go to find out the why of the traveler, the why of the destination, the why of the tour operators. Look at that, the transformation of the conversation that we are having here. It's very interesting, and I think that definitely we need to move on. And for us, the research committee, for us, is how we can, you know, get all these reflections to a tools where we can really help and facilitate that implementation on the ground. We can say it in that way. So it's really to ground all these the concepts, the paradigm. It is not easy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you guys. It's been wonderful. And as a wrap up, in my case, I would like to emphasize that from my point of view, and I'm working in an article at this moment to be published sometime. Well, the article is finished, but it's in the process of being approved. For me, transformational tourism is a new stage of tourism. It's a new stage that moves away from the traditional ways of doing tourism, even from the modern kind of tourism, the industrial kind of tourism that is mostly hedonistic and is mostly kind of factory oriented, you know. And it's always something more than the kind of postmodern tourism, the experiential kind of tourism. And so we are in a new stage of tourism, you know. I think it's going to be the tourism of the future, a tourism that is about the inner journey, a tourism that is aware of the community, that is socially responsible, that is aligned with the values of the people and of the future that we need, that we are looking for. So I think that transformational tourism is not only a hot topic, is the way that tourism has to be in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Marco, for that last remark. I think that's a perfect, you know, ending for this session. I totally agree with you. With this current situation that we're on, we're all, you know, really thinking about what we're doing, why we're doing, and I think transformative travel, it's going to be the way. You know, we're going to travel less, but we're going to travel more meaningful, I think. So thank you everyone for being in this session, for the conversation, and well, hopefully we can repeat this very soon. Ciao, ciao, and thank you to everyone.
Thank you so much.